Elon Musk stood before the crowd, his sharp eyes scanning the room where scientists, philosophers, and influential figures in the tech world were gathered. He took a deep breath before speaking, asking a powerful question. Is it possible for a world where belief in God and science not only coexist but complement each other? The moment Elon's words echoed in the room, the atmosphere grew heavy. All eyes were on him, many people leaning back in their seats as if the question was awakening something deep within them. Some nodded gently, but no one rushed to answer. This was no ordinary question. It was a jolt to the core of everyone's beliefs. Elon continued, but now his voice was no longer sharp, it was softer, as if guiding everyone into a world no one could anticipate. Is there anyone among us bold enough to ask that when we look up at the stars in the night sky, are we not just small beings in an endless, vast universe? And could these very questions bring us closer to the truth? The room fell silent, as though everyone present was contemplating the profound meaning behind his words. Elon didn't expect an immediate response. Instead, he continued to stir the curiosity, the deep-seated struggles that each person hid within. Science has taken us to distant horizons. We've touched the universe, discovered mysteries that remain unsolved. But the question of God, of faith, can science really provide the answer to everything? With that question, Elon took a step back, as though inviting everyone to embark on an adventure, not into space, but into their own souls and beliefs. Let me tell you a story, he said, his eyes lighting up with hope. This story might just change the way you view the world. And so, Elon Musk began to tell a story, not one about space exploration, but about a deeper connection between humanity and the vast universe. A story no one in the room would ever forget. When Elon Musk was a young man, a part of him always carried an unanswered question. Is there something greater than all that we know? As a child, he was raised in a family filled with a strong belief in science, truth, and proof. His father often said, "If you can't prove it, it doesn't exist." Stories of God and faith never truly reached him. To Elon, the world was just a series of natural laws, and everything could be explained through science. But by the end of his 20s, questions began to arise in his mind. They weren't grand questions, but a series of small moments, seemingly harmless experiences that sparked something deeper. One night, as he stood on the rooftop of his apartment, the bright city lights below, he looked up and was captivated by the mystery of the star-filled sky. Everything around him seemed to blur, leaving only the infinite space stretching out, the distant stars challenging his understanding. In that moment, he felt something intangible, a sense of awe about something beyond the realm of scientific explanation. Is what I see just a series of random natural events? Elon wondered. Or is there something greater? Some invisible force that's shaping everything we know? Amid the cool night breeze, that question slowly ignited in his mind. It couldn't be explained by data or experiments. Elon didn't share that thought with anyone. Not at that moment. It was a feeling too vast, too complex for him to put into words. Day by day, he continued building companies, launching rockets, and changing the world in a way that only Elon Musk could. But a part of him always felt a compulsion, a question that remained unanswered. That night, as he stepped onto the stage before thousands, he was about to address a topic few dared to confront: the connection between science and faith. Have you ever wondered if there might be a path where science and religion could walk together? Elon began, his eyes bright under the stage lights. There's a clear divide between those who cling blindly to religion and those who believe science can solve everything. But could both sides be flawed? Elon asked, his gaze resting on the faces filled with doubt. Surely, there's something that lies between these extremes. It's easy for us to dismiss God as a concept incompatible with modern science, he continued, And just as easy to claim that science holds all the answers. But with every step forward in science, I've come to realize there are things it simply cannot explain. He paused, letting his words settle into the still air. The entire hall seemed to sink into a space of contemplation. The universe is a clear testament, Elon resumed, his voice rising as though guiding everyone into a realm they had never considered. We understand the Big Bang. But what triggered it? What existed before that explosion? Who or what caused everything to begin from a single point? The audience sat silent, breathless, eagerly awaiting something that transcended reason. Elon smiled gently. Yet there was a profound depth in that smile. We cannot prove the existence of God through experiments or microscopes, he went on, his eyes deep and thoughtful. But the inability to prove doesn't mean he doesn't exist. It just means we don't yet have the tools to fully comprehend. Elon's voice dropped, but his message was clear and powerful. We live in a world overflowing with numbers and theories. But there's still so much out there that we cannot explain. And maybe, just maybe, that's the sign of something greater than ourselves. The crowd remained silent, no longer just listening to a speech about the conflict between science and religion, but about life itself, about the things humanity has always yearned to understand and explore. Elon wasn't merely speaking of unanswered questions, he was talking about the search for purpose in life. A journey no one can undertake alone. Standing before the crowd, the stage lights illuminated his face. But in his eyes was not just the glow of ideas but the weight of deep reflection. He recalled an old conversation with one of his esteemed mentors, a great scientist who once said, "Science seeks the truth. But there are truths that cannot be found in a laboratory." That statement had made Elon ponder for years. And at this moment, standing on stage, he realized there are things that cannot be measured by formulas or machines, things that can only be felt by the soul. Elon reflected on the journey of launching SpaceX for the first time, facing countless failures. But instead of giving up, he refused to quit. He believed in the importance of what he was doing, and that belief was what drove him forward. Belief, Elon said, is what keeps us moving when we no longer have the answers. It's what helps us overcome challenges that seem insurmountable when all science and reason fail to explain why. These words felt like a miracle, awakening the audience not about technology or science but about something deeper, a spiritual journey that is not easily recognized. Elon, who had always been a man of logic and science, revealed a different side of himself that night, a side that acknowledged that not all questions can be answered by reason. When sharing his journey, Elon didn't just talk about technology, electric cars, or rockets. He asked the audience, "Are all these things just about creating products and new technologies? Or is there truly something greater we are pursuing?" It was a question everyone in the room had asked themselves at least once in their lives. And now, they understood that there was no simple answer, not science, not religion. Everyone was thinking together about a truth greater than theories or faith. Elon paused, looking at the crowd, his voice lowering. "I don't have all the answers, but I believe in seeking the truth, whether through science, faith, or a combination of both. That is what defines our humanity." In that moment, the room was silent. Everyone understood that Elon was no longer just a scientist or inventor. He was a human being seeking connection, searching for meaning. And that question, about the existence of God, about the purpose of life, had become a part of the journey they were all on, searching not just with their minds but with their hearts. As night fell, Elon's speech continued to unfold profound thoughts like a stream hiding countless layers of meaning. The questions he posed were not about easy answers but about an invitation to relentless exploration. He began to recount his past, as a child encouraged to pursue logic and scientific principles. But as he entered the adult world, he realized there were things beyond the realm of reason, concepts like love, hope, and belief. These could not be shaped or measured but existed very tangibly in every thought, in every emotion. Elon's words were gentle, like a calm flow but extraordinarily deep. The universe is vast and infinite, and we are but grains of sand in the wind. But that doesn't mean our existence is meaningless. Every action, every choice we make is a manifestation of the beliefs and ideals we carry within us. He paused for a moment, letting his words settle in the space. Then continued, perhaps it is belief that connects us all, whether it's belief in a higher power, in knowledge, or in the goodness of humanity. We are all searching for a purpose, a greater ideal beyond ourselves. The audience became completely silent. All that could be heard was the deep, steady breathing as if they were contemplating every word, every idea Elon had just spoken. When he finished his speech, no one hurried to applaud. There was no murmuring. Instead, they sat quietly, each person feeling as though they had been guided into a profoundly introspective journey. There was no certainty, no definitive answer, but something immense had been ignited within them, a subtle connection between belief, reason, and life. Elon stepped down from the stage, his eyes scanning the audience, but his mind remained preoccupied with unanswered questions. Could it be that God exists? He didn't have a clear answer. But what he knew for certain was that the pursuit of the answer was one of the most important journeys he could undertake. As the lights came on and the audience began to leave, the room remained filled with questions. Not just Elon's question, but one shared by everyone present. Could it be that everything they had just heard was the greatest question humanity must face? And in that moment, Elon Musk, a man who had changed the world in his own way, left behind an even bigger question mark than ever before. Walking off the stage, each of Elon's steps echoed in the empty space, like invisible ripples spreading through the room. Those who remained could not easily shake off the thoughts that had touched their hearts. There were eyes searching for answers, faces showing confusion. But the most palpable thing in the atmosphere was the stillness, a silence not of boredom, but of reflection, of grappling with something they couldn't quite grasp. Elon paused and looked back at the audience, those who sat silently, their faces clearly reflecting a struggle between reason and emotion. But the one unmistakable feeling in the air was that they were all searching for something greater than themselves. What would come next? They wondered? The search would continue, endlessly. Finally, Elon stepped out of the spotlight, carrying with him questions no one could answer immediately. But perhaps it was the search itself that was the most important part of the human journey. As Elon moved to the back of the room, the air grew heavier with contemplation. An elderly man, his wrinkled skin bearing the marks of time but his eyes shining brightly, approached him. The man's face was etched with the passage of years, yet his gaze burned with the curiosity of a child who had never stopped searching. All my life, I have been seeking answers, he said softly, his voice smooth but filled with the weight of experience. Every night, I ask myself if there's something greater out there, something that transcends what we know, what we feel. Thank you for reminding me that it's the journey of searching that matters most, not just the answers. Elon nodded, offering a gentle smile full of understanding. He didn't need to say anything more, the man already understood, and that shared recognition was enough. They were alike, quiet pilgrims moving through the vastness of existence, both yearning for answers. But in this moment, the search itself was what connected them. As Elon continued walking, a crowd began to gather around him, each person carrying their own story, worries, and desires. A young girl approached with tears in her eyes, a small cross necklace hanging around her neck. She clutched it tightly in her hand, her face trembling as she spoke. I've always kept my faith, Mr. Musk, she said, her voice faltering. But sometimes, I feel so lost in this world. How do you find the strength to keep going when everything around you feels so uncertain? Elon looked at her, his eyes softening with deep understanding. Sometimes, he replied gently, we must learn to embrace the unknown. Faith and science, they're not opposites. They're two halves of a long story. Science asks what? And how? While faith seeks answers to why. These questions might never meet. But that's the diversity we need. The girl stood silent for a moment, and then her eyes gradually lit up, as though she had found some solace in Elon's words. So it's okay not to have all the answers, isn't it? She asked, her tone carrying a hint of comfort. Elon nodded slightly, a soft smile on his lips. That's right, he said. Sometimes, it's the gaps that drive us further. The girl smiled, her tears stopping, replaced by a sense of calm. Elon continued moving through the crowd, overhearing the small conversations around him. Some were debating faith, others science, and many were searching for ways to reconcile the two seemingly opposing worlds. Although his words didn't spark division or conflict, the atmosphere was filled with an air of harmony, as though everyone had realized that answers weren't always necessary. And in that moment, Elon perceived a profound truth. It wasn't the answers but the questions that kept the human spirit alive. It was in allowing ourselves not to know everything that we could find true freedom. The night passed in silence. The sky like a grand canvas stretched above Elon as he stepped outside. Pausing, he looked up and felt the majesty of the vast universe. Each star, each galaxy, reminded him of his own smallness, but also of the greatness in humanity's desire to understand. There were no answers, at least. Not yet, but what he realized was that the journey of searching was the most valuable part of life. Elon didn't know if God existed, but he knew that, whether through science or faith, it was the act of searching that gave life its true meaning. Gazing at the starry sky, he couldn't help but wonder what humanity would discover in the years ahead. Would we find answers about the origins of the universe? Or would these questions remain an unsolved mystery? He didn't know. But the one thing he was certain of was that the search itself was what drove him and countless others to keep moving forward. After a while, a man dressed in a white coat emerged. His expression serious but his eyes filled with curiosity. I must admit, the man said, his voice carrying a hint of unfamiliarity. Before attending your speech, I didn't know what to expect. But now I find myself pondering so many things. I'm a man of science. But now I wonder if there can be common ground between science and faith. Elon looked at him, his eyes lighting up. There is, he replied simply yet with deep understanding. There's always room for both. The man nodded, the tension in his gaze gradually dissolving. Thank you for opening a new path for me. As the man turned to leave, Elon was alone once more, his eyes fixed on the night sky. He took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air envelop him. The question of God's existence remained unanswered. But what he knew for sure was that the journey of exploration, with its endless questions, was what truly made life special. The distant city lights shimmered like stars scattered across the ground. But for Elon Musk, everything at that moment felt still and vast. A sense of peace filled his mind as he gazed at the natural and human-made wonders around him. There was no need to seek answers right then and there because the journey itself, the steps taken throughout a lifetime, had already provided him with answers. Walking toward his car, Elon felt an odd sense of relief. A faint smile gracing his lips as if affirming that he was part of something much greater than himself. A pursuit, not just of science, but of questions that couldn't be immediately answered. Questions that only ever-present curiosity could dare to ask. The drive home was silent. The empty streets looked like a living painting, each street lamp resembling a small star, casting light on aging walls. Outside, the scenery blurred. Silhouettes of people passed by unnoticed, each lost in their own thoughts. Elon couldn't help but wonder, among those people? Was anyone struggling with their own life's big questions? Were any of them immersed in the same musings as he was? Is God real? Why do we exist? These questions weren't confined to science or religion. Every person, at least once in their life, whispers into the vastness of space, longing for a sign, a response. When Elon's car stopped in front of his familiar home, the surrounding stillness amplified his sense of solitude. A faint light glowed from the living room, but everything else was shrouded in darkness. He stepped out of the car, quietly shutting the door before pausing to absorb the quiet of the night. The stars above seemed to shine even brighter, as if they were speaking to him, as if they too participated in the eternal dialogue between humanity and the cosmos. The night sky always brought Elon a peculiar feeling, not just about the work he did, but about the invisible connection between himself and the infinite universe. Stepping inside, the ticking of a clock and the profound silence of the space heightened his awareness of his solitude. It all stood in stark contrast to the storm of thoughts swirling within him. Elon sank into the sofa, exhaling deeply. His phone vibrated, signaling tasks awaiting him. But tonight he didn't feel like responding. Work, responsibilities, messages, they could all wait a little longer. His mind wandered back to the inescapable question that had lingered deep in his soul. Does God exist? Science had given him countless tools to explore this world. But could it ever answer the questions that had resided in his heart his entire life? In the quiet of the room, Elon felt himself being drawn into an endless stream of thought. Questions about existence, faith, and the purpose of life were not things easily answered. But it was these very questions that had led him to great discoveries, pushed the boundaries of human understanding, and perhaps these questions were what gave his life meaning. As Elon's car rolled onto the driveway leading to his home, darkness enveloped everything except for the faint glow of a single light in the living room. He stopped the car, carefully turned the key, and stepped out, closing the door with care. Before him, the vast and tranquil night stretched out like a canvas, nothing to disturb the stillness. Only a dark sky adorned with thousands of glittering stars. Elon couldn't shake the feeling that the stars were whispering something, as if they knew he was standing there, sharing the profound silence of the universe with him. This feeling, both strange and familiar, felt like an unspoken connection between him and the boundless dimensions beyond. He looked up at the sky, his eyes shining in the darkness. Since working at SpaceX, he had seen many things most people could only dream of. But tonight, like so many other nights, he couldn't help but reflect on the smallness of humanity in the face of the universe's grandeur. We are nothing, yet we can be everything, a part of everything. In his eyes, nothing could compare to the feeling of being a part of something so vast and magnificent. As he stepped into the house, Elon immediately felt the silence enveloping him, where the ticking of the clock marked each passing moment, and his phone continued to buzz with endless notifications. Though these things always awaited him, tonight, none of it seemed to matter. He sank into the sofa, allowing his weary body to relax momentarily. Even with his eyes closed, his mind couldn't escape the question that had haunted him his entire life. Does God truly exist? Despite devoting his life to pursuing truth through science, Elon still hadn't found a satisfying answer to this question. He had explored uncharted horizons, from the fragments of the universe to the marvels of technology. But what he couldn't uncover was the answer to the existence of a supreme being, something no scientific formula could ever explain. Thoughts of life brought him back to his childhood years when he was just an innocent child listening to stories about the world. The origins of the universe, stories so strange that even adults couldn't explain them. That feeling when he looked up at the night sky, not as a scientist but as a child with a heart full of hope and curiosity. Those stars weren't just bright points in the sky, they were gateways to an uncharted universe. A journey he wanted to continue. Elon smiled gently, his eyes closed, even though he had searched through every theory and technology to answer life's big questions. Perhaps it was the unanswered questions that truly drove him to keep seeking the hidden wonders of this universe. If you find this story fascinating and want to continue accompanying us on new journeys of discovery, don't forget to hit the subscribe button now. Share your thoughts in the comments section and spread the story to those you cherish. Together, let's build a community filled with inspiration and meaningful stories. Note: this is a fictional story created to convey meaningful messages. All information and characters in the story are products of imagination. We are not responsible for any misunderstandings.